Okay, let me just post this to the internet. See if this is going to work. I don't know if you folks can see me. If you can see me, as usual, please let me know in the chat channel. And then we'll get into the Q&A. Like a boss. What a week. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if people can see me in the old chat channel. Roger, I can see you. Locked on in Cambridge, UK. Fantastic. I love Cambridge. What a great town that is. So we've got a minute until we get to 6 p.m. UTC, and then we'll get into the good stuff. Okay. Let's see if anybody else can see me. I see you, Belkinsa. Excellent. So I'm just going to give it a minute for us to get to start the session, and then we will get into it. Let me turn my phone off. I'll mute it. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's get started. Excuse me. What's going on with my throat? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my weekly Ubuntu Q&A. My name is Jono Bacon. I work at Canonical as the Ubuntu Community Manager. And basically, I do this every week on a Tuesday with the goal of providing an opportunity where anyone in the community, anyone can ask any question they like about what we're doing in Ubuntu. So all questions are welcome here. You can ask about what decisions we're making at Canonical, or what we're doing with Ubuntu in the direction we're going in, what we're doing with the cloud or the client side. All and any questions are absolutely welcome on the Q&A. The only kinds of questions that I don't really want to cover are technical support queries. If you don't know how to configure something or you're having a problem, this really isn't the best venue for that, because going through a debugging session live on a Google Hangout, while it will be of interest to some people, more importantly, it won't be of interest to me. It won't be of interest to most. So this session is really intended to be an opportunity where you can ask anything, primarily about the strategy of what we're doing in Ubuntu. But if you just got any questions and queries that you've got about what we're doing as well. So how do you ask questions? It's very, very simple. You type in the word question in capital letters or uppercase if you like to describe it that way, and then I will go through them one by one. Please get your questions into the IRC channel. Please don't repeat the same question over and over again, because it's just annoying for the viewers, and it kind of makes me not want to answer the question. It's a little antisocial. So please don't repeat the same question over and over again. But get your questions in, and then I will go through them one by one. So I can see people joining up, which is always, I always love doing these Q&As, because, like, for me, one of the most enjoyable parts about being part of the community is just hanging out with people. It's the conversations, and when you work from home, it's sometimes a little difficult to do that. That's one of the major benefits that we've always had with the Ubuntu Developer Summit. But these Q&As and Hangouts and things like that we do, and the Ubuntu Online Summit, which is going to be in a few weeks as well. It provides a great opportunity to just have conversations, and in this case, to answer a bunch of interesting questions as well. So yeah, be sure to get your questions in. Now is a great opportunity. Oh, also, before I go on, I have to provide a slight caveat. There's something funky going on with my internet connection today. I couldn't connect to my internet, to my home internet connection, about 7 minutes before I was supposed to do the Hangout. And right now, Network Manager, it looks like it's trying to find a network, so I'm not really sure whether I'm connected via wireless or whether I'm connected via my cable. I think I'm connected via the cable, but then maybe if there's some issues with me cutting out or something like that, then I apologize up front. Now, get your questions in. There's no questions. This is going to be a very short session if there are no questions. Usually when I say that, we'll then see a of questions kind of come down, but we'll see. Although I need to keep checking to make sure that I'm still connected to the internet. Yep, I am. Okay, just checking. Get your questions in, folks. If there's no questions, we'll wrap it up. Belkinson says cable is better at times. Cable is better at all times, I think. Yeah. First question is from Roger. Your thoughts on adverts in Firefox, and did you sort out your noisy neighbors? I don't know what you name. Noisy neighbors? I don't remember noisy neighbors. Roger, you'll have to clarify what you mean about the about the noisy neighbors. Thoughts on adverts in Firefox? I don't see any problem with it. The thing about communities and monetizing communities, because that's what it is. I mean, you know, we're talking about generating revenue from a community of users. The thing about monetizing communities is that you have to do it in a way that plays to the core of your community. If you do it in a tacky or a kind of a cheap manner, then people get frustrated and, you know, they don't like it. If you do it in an invasive manner, people don't like it. And I think that what the Firefox team have done with the ads in Firefox, I think is very elegant, and I think it's a great solution. At least based upon my knowledge. My knowledge is that what happens is when you open up a new tab, you see ads on that tab, and then when you type in the web address of where you're going, the ads naturally disappear and you go to the website. To me, that's a very, very reasonable, elegant way of handling advertising. You know, some people have tried to claim that it's not advertising. It is advertising, but advertising isn't necessarily bad. And you know what? Open source projects have got to pay the bills, right? I always find it ironic how some people claim that all advertising is terrible, yet they are big Firefox fans, because Firefox, by definition, wouldn't be around today if it wasn't for advertising. If it wasn't for Google, Firefox wouldn't be what it is today. That's for damn sure. So, you know, advertising in a place that's unobtrusive and elegant, I think, is fine. Advertising that, you know, like when you go to some websites, like, I'll give you an example. One thing that drives me nuts about Phoronix, like Phoronix, I think is a really wonderful technology site. And I think Michael Larrable just, I mean, he's a workhorse with what he does there. But he has those ads on there that, like, you know, you go to read an article and it pops up a massive ad trying to sell you some product. You know, it's not him trying to sell you something, it's some advertising agency, and it's just so annoying and frustrating and invasive. That's the kind of advertising that I don't like, but the way Firefox do it, I think, makes sense. And Roger, yeah, you'll have to clarify what you mean about my noisy neighbors. I don't remember having noisy neighbors. A. Hazen, Ubuntu Pioneer sounds great. Thank you. Will there be anything given to members of the Core Apps teams who have only contributed to Core Apps and not created their own apps? Yeah, so I've asked Alan Pope to identify, like, the major contributors to the Core Apps. We can't give T-shirts out to all of the Core Apps contributors. You know, if you've written a patch and got it into a Core App, we're probably not going to be able to give you anything. But those people who've been really, like, working hard and delivering a lot of value to the Core Apps, yes, we want to send them T-shirts as well. The best, has every phone tablet in the future the ability to run the desktop mode of Ubuntu, or does it depend on the OEM? So the majority of phones and tablets that you're going to see with Ubuntu, at least in the interim, are going to be running a tablet, a phone or tablet operating system. They won't have the desktop mode that some of you will have seen with Ubuntu for Android. There's various reasons for that. One of the reasons is that you know, is the practicalities of delivering a product like that. I mean, if you think about it, for example, for example, if I'm at an office and I'm working on my desktop, or working on my laptop computer, and maybe it's docked with my screen like it is right now, and I decide to go into a meeting room, then all I need to do is unplug my screen and mouse and keyboard, and I can carry my laptop around and I can still use it. If you are running everything on a phone, then it's a little more complicated to do that, because if you take the phone out of the socket, you have to make notes on the phone, and that might be more complicated. So there are some practical limitations around the technology there that I think ultimately, this is just me guessing, I mean, please don't see this as official Canonical statement, but I think a lot of those issues will be resolved in the future with hardware solutions. Like what I can imagine seeing in the future is something that kind of looks like a laptop that you can plug a phone into. So it boots from the phone, but then it has the benefits of kind of like the laptop shell. I can imagine something like that. So you could solve those kinds of issues. But it really fundamentally depends on OEMs. The technology's there. Canonical's got the technology and it runs. The challenge is OEMs and whether they want to ship that product and whether they think that they can deliver a product that people want. So. Cool. Ask the question: pizza or lasagna? Just for fun. I'm always going to be pizza. I've actually started making pizza recently. My father-in-law, my wife, her family, many moons ago, hail from Italy. I mean, my wife's immediate family, her parents and everything, they're all American. But there's a lot of Italian blood in the family. And one of the things I love about my family is that that's important to them. They always want to kind of retain that. So my father-in-law built a pizza oven in his garden. He's got this beautiful house. So we went over there one time and we made pizza, and it was the first time he'd done it. And it was like a life-changing experience for me. I loved it. So I said to Eric, I was like, we have to do that at home. And we have a kind of, it's not a big green egg, but it's kind of like a big green egg. It's a Kamado cooker. So I went and bought a pizza stone and a pizza peel, and we've been experimenting with making pizza recently, and it's been a lot. It's been delicious, but it's also just been a lot of fun as well. Like there's something very social about making pizza together. So yeah, lasagna's good though. But love pizza. Pizza's also better once you've been drinking. The best. Is it true that there are coming Ubuntu tablets this year? We don't have anything to announce right now. I mean, Ubuntu tablet is still very much of a focus of what we're working on the phone, working on the tablet. But in terms of products like BQ and Maizu, we don't have anything to announce yet. Aki ThinkPad, do you have a 1410 image yet? I believe that there's daily images. Yeah, I mean, now is kind of a dangerous time to use the development version of Ubuntu, because there's a lot of tool chain things going on. So for those, a bit of background, what happens when we start a new release? What happens is before all of our developers are going to start working on it, what we do is we choose the tool chain. So these are the build tools that we use to build Ubuntu. So this is the compilers and the linkers and all of those different pieces. There's this guy called Matthias Close who's been with Ubuntu pretty much from the beginning, Doko, whose brain works differently to most because he can understand how all of these different pieces fit together. And Doko basically goes in there, kind of like an astronaut going to a planet for the first time, where everything's weird and dark and strange, and he sets those pieces up. He essentially builds the bridge for our developers. And then the next thing that we do is we take the Debian archive and we do what's called a sync. So we basically take all the source code from Debian, and we bring all the source code from Debian, and then we build it with that tool chain. So then essentially what we have at that point is we have Debian but built with our tool chain. And then what we do is we've got this massive library of patches, and we basically apply all of those patches to all of those different projects. We fix any conflict issues, and that converts that Debian source code into Ubuntu source code. And then at that point, general development starts. So right now we're in that process of getting the toolchain set up and building Debian and all the rest of it. So now is not the best time to start playing around with the development version of Ubuntu, unless you're happy to fix the potential breakage. Knack, Ubuntu 1 going. Development on Ubuntu for Android has been dropped. Could Ubuntu for TV be next? Look, Knack, someone asked me this similar question the other day. Technology is technology, right? I mean, we're talking about software, and software changes, and the needs of the market changes. We're in a very, very active kind of industry right now. If you look at the pace of innovation that's been happening across the market, 5 years ago, as an example, 5 years ago, the desktop market was where it was really at. I mean, I moved to America in 2008, and when I think about what it was like back then, people were starting to use cell phones more and more. Like the idea of having, smartphones was becoming more and more prevalent. But it was still, still a lot of people were using kind of dumb phones, and their computers were the primary way in which they interacted with each other. Spin forward now, I mean, back then the tablet thing hadn't even happened yet, really. Now we have cell phones, smartphones, we have tablets, we have Google Glass, we have wearables, we have the Internet of Things. Everything is like, we're seeing this incredible rate of change and innovation that's happened in the industry. And when you're a platform company like Canonical is, and you have a platform like Ubuntu with a huge community wrapped around it, you need to think carefully about how you want to present that. And you got to, I think one of the misconceptions that people have about Canonical is that we have this unlimited set of resources, and we don't. We have a limited set of resources. We have to use them most wisely. So Ubuntu One, let's address each of these three different things that you raised. Ubuntu One, I think it was the right decision as far as I'm concerned to shut that down, because there are lots of other services that are available. There's things like Dropbox and Google Drive and Spider Oak and OneSync and BitTorrent Sync. There's all kinds of different services that are available. And, the majority of those work well in Ubuntu. So why try and compete in something that, frankly, is not our main goal? Our main goal here was not to provide a cloud storage platform. Our main goal is to provide a very powerful operating system and set of services that surround that. So that was the right thing to do. And now that Ubuntu One team has been spread into other projects where we need their efforts more. Things like the app developer platform and the various online services, things like having the App Store, the new App Store available on the web, and things like that. Second area they mentioned is Ubuntu for Android. Ubuntu for Android hasn't been dropped. Ubuntu for Android just isn't something that we're actively going out and trying to sell to organizations as much as we were, right? I love the way this has been presented in the press, because people make out as if like the source code or the technology has been deleted, and it really hasn't. We've just we have so many things that we can focus on with Ubuntu. We've got desktop, phone, tablet, TV. We've got Ubuntu for Android. We've got Juju, Maz. There's Launchpad. There's Bazaar. There's all of these different things. We can't make all of them a priority at the same time. That defeats the purpose of setting priorities. So Ubuntu for Android has just essentially been, it's not been dropped, but what it has been is it's just been directly deprioritized. Believe me, if a company comes knocking on Canonical's door and says, we really want to ship Ubuntu for Android and we want to ship it to millions of people, I'm almost 100% certain Canonical's going to have a conversation with them about it. The final one, Ubuntu for TV. Ubuntu for TV hasn't been dropped. It's just been deprioritized. It's just frankly at the bottom of the priority list right now. Right now, the real focus is on phone, and then next to that we've got kind of tablet and desktop equal priorities. Desktop is kind of in maintenance mode right now before we get onto converging it, which is happening in this cycle. And TV is just at towards the bottom of the list. So that's the reason why we're making those decisions. Aki ThinkPad, will you be redesigning the HUD at all for Unity 8, say to perhaps extend its functionality? I'll be honest with you, I don't really know, because there's been changes in Unity in apps that run on Ubuntu anyway. So the new header means that we have, for example, a settings drop down, and the settings drop down provides access to that kind of functionality. And so I don't know whether we're just going to direct people towards just that settings kind of menu, or whether we're going to encourage people to use the HUD, or whether we're going to encourage people to use menus. Because you may have a much wider set of menu options on a desktop, for example, than you do on a phone, because you can't expose it as easily. So I honestly don't know. This is something that the design team are evaluating, and I'm as curious as you are. Hey Hazen, which version of the Ubuntu Touch image do you run, e.g. stable, Devel, or Devel proposed? Right now I'm running Devel, but for the trusty branch. I just haven't had a chance to switch over to Devel on the Unicorn one. Aki ThinkPad, what does Jono Bacon want to see as a feature that hasn't yet been planned on the next Ubuntu tablet, Ubuntu desktop? That's a great question. What do I want to see as a feature? To be honest with you, the majority of what I want to see is already in the plans. Things like turn-by-turn directions and email is something that we're looking at. What do I want to see? I honestly can't think of anything. I mean, when I look at selfishly look at my own requirements around what I look for in a phone or a tablet, I have frankly very simple needs. I want to I want to browse the internet, and I want to send email, and I want to read Google Plus and Twitter and Facebook, and I want to watch Netflix and Amazon Prime. Like, those are basically the things I use it for. I think that everything is. I think everything that I want to see. I know this sounds like a horrendous, like I'm spinning you all a line, but I honestly can't think of anything that I'm not bothered about outside of the plan. It serves my needs very well. Roger. Roger clarifies about the noisy neighbours. Your tweet saying that there was a screaming chainsaw next to you and you had been up with your poor little one. Yeah. So, look, some of you will be parents and some of you won't be parents. And I appreciate that when you're not a parent, it's really annoying hearing parents become all holier than thou about what it's like to have kids. But one of the things that I can attest about having a kid, I've got a 18-month-old little boy. One of the things that I can attest here is that you don't get as much sleep as you'd like. Now, it's way better than it was. Like, when he was born and, up until about 6 months, 7 months of age, he was waking up every couple of hours and we had to get up. It was particularly hard for my wife for the first 6 months because we couldn't bottle feed him. He had to be breastfed. So the best I could do was kind of get up with her and help with other stuff. But it's tiring, right? But even today, right, we get up. Our weekends, for example, one of us has to get up with him, and each day we trade off. And he usually wakes up at sort of 6:15 or 6:30 in the morning. So the one day that I have, right, and I'm up early every single day for work, right? So I start work at 8 o'clock. So three days a week during the week, I'm up at 6. The other 2 days, I'm up at 7. So I look forward to my one day when I can have a sleep in, right? And my wife is brilliant. She'll often go out with Jack, so he's not screaming and waking me up. And I look forward. I cherish that one day, and it's usually on a Saturday. So I wake up the other day, and there is someone decided to just saw a bunch of trees down in their garden at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I honestly. So I got up, I tried to ignore it, and then I got up and I started putting my clothes on, and I was about to storm around and tell him to stop doing it in words of single syllable. And then I thought, you know what, whatever, I'm up now. So I went and had a coffee and did some work. Hey, Hazen, asked this on April Fool's by accident, but do you mind answering again in more serious? As a company with a large amount of its workforce working from home, how do you as a company ensure that people are actually doing their work and what hours they've been working? Do you, for example, have a sign-in, sign-out, daily stand-ups, or task-based performance? Hey, Hazen, that's a really great question. So back when I joined Canonical, back in the in 2006, we used to have daily reports. So at the end of each day, you'd send an email to this mailing list and just say what you were doing. This will come as no surprise to you, but everyone hated doing that because it's just kind of annoying having to write that one email every single day. But in Canonical's defense, Canonical was super innovative from day one about the idea of people working from home. Even in the technology industry today, the idea of people working from home, working remotely, is still very, very rare. Many of you will be familiar with when Yahoo, when Marissa Mayer came in and she basically said no one could work from home anymore, which is, a little ironic. Well, it's a little ironic because she has her kids. She built a creche in her office so she could have her kids with her, but other people, they can't do that. So working from home is pretty rare, and Canonical's always been super, responsive in terms of that. But there are a set of considerations that we need to have. And back then it was harder than it is today. Like these days we have Hangouts, and we have easy access to technology and whatever else to make it easier to be in touch. Things like collaborative editing with Google Docs and Hangouts and whatever else. Back then, we did everything through conference calls. For those people who were technical enough, they'd set up a SIP line so they could have voice over IP. And then we used wikis. And these days, we don't have really anything. We don't have sign-in and sign-out forms. Daily stand-ups are not there. People do daily stand-ups, but they do them not because to make sure that people are working. They do them because they need daily stand-ups to achieve a particular task. And then task-based performance. Everyone has a set of expectations around how they deliver, and then we have performance reviews every year. We just go through that right now, actually. So, yeah, I mean, Canonical does it in the way that I think they should do it, which is to put trust in managers and to put trust in employees. It's pretty obvious when someone's not working. I know this sounds a bit weird. I mean, I've got a team, like my team is spread across the US and spread across Europe. So I've never really experienced this because my team work all the time. They work more than they should. But it's pretty obvious when somebody's not really working very much. Because you can base them on the amount of, how active they are in IRC, how responsive they are to email, things like that. But we basically put trust in our managers to assess that. Our view at Canonical has always been, we judge you on the work that you do, not on the hours that you put in. So, some people work all the hours of the day, and some people, they finish at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock and they're done, and that's great. The most important thing is knowing what that person should be doing and whether they deliver on their expectations. So I think the balance is pretty right. But yeah, I can't emphasize enough. Like I meet a lot of people when I go to conferences who love the idea of working from home, but it's it's difficult because they work for companies that don't want to do that. As Mike says, my team spends all day on Google plus Reddit and IRC, so it kind of works out well for us. But I just want to wrap up this thing with one very, very important point for those of you who may be thinking about going to work for a company that works from home. It really isn't for everybody. There are lots of people who are really good at what they do who think, I'd love to work from home, and then they do it and they get lonely or they get bored or they become demotivated. Like some people really do need to work in an office, and it varies from person to person. That's one of the things that I always look for when I'm recruiting for my team is people who are going to be good working in that kind of environment. Because even though it is easier these days to be in touch with people with things like Hangouts, you still have to have a good degree of self-motivation. Like speaking personally, I love working from home. For me, it's one of the major benefits, particularly now I have a kid. Because I get to see Jack every day, like he's downstairs and I get to go and see him. If I was at work, I wouldn't have the opportunity to do that. If I want to take a break for 15 minutes and play on my guitar, I can do that as well. I can listen to metal at home without having to wear headphones and annoying people in an office. So, and the other thing I've found is it's just kind of like whenever I go to an office, invariably I get less done because if you sat at a desk, people are walking past and they come over and say hello, and you get stuck into meetings, you get dragged into meetings that are maybe not particularly useful. So for me personally, it works out well. Sorry, that was a very long and elongated answer, but I think it's a really interesting question. And I know you asked that, Andrew, on April Fools. I don't even want to think what I said in response to that. I don't know, I can't remember. Aki ThinkPad, what is Canonical going to do with all the infrastructure purchase to help support Ubuntu One? Do you have like 10,000 hard drives kicking around? All of the infrastructure we'll be using for Ubuntu One will be just repurposed. I think that we had, if I recall, I can't remember whether we had a bunch of that in the cloud. I think that we either moved it from the cloud to in-house or we moved it from in-house to the cloud. I don't remember. But believe me, we can always do with more infrastructure equipment. So I think a lot of that will be repurposed into the app developer community stuff, and we'll probably see some of that hardware being used for build daemons and build Ds and whatever else. Pulu 90, was opening Ubuntu One sources obvious, or was there a discussion about that? Intellectually, it was obvious. Why not? But there needed to be a discussion about that because open sourcing source code is complicated because you've got to do your homework to make sure that you can do that safely. Because something that a lot of people don't understand about source code is that there can be some obstacles in there to open sourcing. You need to make sure that you're not having issues with other people's patents. You need to make sure that the code is code that you can share, that you haven't licensed code from another organization. You need to make sure that it's all appropriately licensed, that you have permission from everybody who contributed to that if people worked outside of the organization. Just you need to do your homework and making sure that you can do that so the code can be used in an open source capacity. But yes, in terms of like, should we open source it, that was just a no-brainer. When I first heard the news about Ubuntu 1, it was the first thing I wanted to do. The first thing I said was, we have to open source this. I mean, why wouldn't we? So, Belkinso, what's in your cup? So this is going to make a few of you a little sick in your mouth. So this is a cup that my wife got me. She's gonna. I'm not going to read it all out directly, but it's very, very soppy. But basically, it's I'm head over heels in love with you because you always know how to put a smile on my face and make me feel safe and loved. Blah 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 blah. All that kind of soppy stuff. My wife got me. My wife is she's a bit of a cafe press addict from time to time. So we do kind of silly romantic stuff for each other. But you know what? That's what being married's all about. It's not just living together. Aki ThinkPad, Vim or Emacs? Neither, to be honest with you. People often debate about Vim or Emacs, and people get very into those debates. And I appreciate how flexible Vim and Emacs are as text editors. But for me, all I need in a text editor is the ability to write down text and save it. I don't need I don't need a key combination to jump to the end of a line or whatever it might be. So I'm pretty low tech when it comes to editors. So therefore, Vim and Emacs have both never really been my thing. If I have to use a command line editor, a console editor, then I use Nano. Seb, putting Linux to the side in answer to this question, what BSD version would you use and why? Seb, I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't even know what BSD versions are out right now. I haven't thought about BSD as an option since 1999, or 1998. The first free software operating system I could get installed on my laptop at the time was FreeBSD. Everything else didn't work. But the minute I got, I think at the time, Red Hat to work on it, I didn't touch BSD. I've got nothing against BSD, but it's just not my thing. Aki ThinkPad, any tips for how to keep your focus on tasks when programming for long hours? Energy drinks, music, sitting in front of one of those blue exercise balls. You know what? I know that it's kind of cool these days for people to spend, 8 hours hacking on something, or 8 hours like playing video games, or whatever it might be. I've never really been that kind of person. Like for me, I will program, like when I've been programming in the past, if there has been times when I've programmed all day, but I've done it because I'm excited about it, and it's fun, and it's interesting to me. I've done it because I haven't tried to find ways to keep me going longer. It's just naturally happened because I'm really into what I'm doing. And I think that's the best thing to do. I wouldn't recommend, drinking Monster or Red Bull or anything like that, or Rockstar, to try and keep yourself going, because that's just dangerous. I think I told this story once before, but when I first got into Linux, and I went to university, and I was really getting into. I was learning how to program. I was learning C++, and I was writing KDE apps, and my girlfriend would go to bed about 10 o'clock in the evening, and then I'd basically stay awake all night programming. And she'd be asleep next to me, and I'd be on my laptop all night. And then the TV will be on in the background with the Paramount Comedy Channel. I always remember that, which is like England's version of Comedy Central. And I basically hack all night. And I used to drink Coke Coca-Cola all night to keep me awake. And it was kind of the thrill of the hack. Like, it was really fun. I was excited. Like, I have very, very fond memories of those times. But it got to a point where I was drinking a 6-pack of Coke every night. And I started getting lightheaded, and I started getting woozy. I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, what's your diet like? I was like, it's not great, but it's not as bad as you imagine. He said, do you drink very much at the time? Through university, I never drank anything. He said, do you do any drugs? I said, I don't do any drugs. Any unusual dietary habits? I said, well, I drink six cans of Coke every night. And he was like, yeah, you need to stop that. So, and I came off it, and he was like, go cold turkey. And I was really sick. I was really sick for about probably 3 or 4 days. It was what I imagined coming off heroin must feel like. I was cold, I was shivering, I was constantly vomiting. It was horrendous. Caffeine addiction is a serious thing. And you know what? It really worries me. I know that you can tell I'm a dad now. It really worries me when I see people what's the word? When I see people kind of celebrating caffeine as like the extremities of taking in caffeine. It's really dangerous. Like, no question about it. Like, cigarettes are obviously dangerous. Alcohol is obviously dangerous if taken to excess. Drugs are obviously dangerous. But caffeine is serious. It's a seriously dangerous thing, right? So seriously, folks, just be a little careful with your caffeine intake. Basil. Why is the unknown display still in Ubuntu 14.04? I don't know what you mean. Sorry, Basil, I don't understand the question. Next question is from Knack. Have any of the mainstream apps like WhatsApp, Instagram, Viber been submitted to the Click App Store? So it depends what you mean by mainstream. I mean, we've had, we do have like some of the major web apps in there, so things like Facebook and Twitter and things like that. In terms of like client side, like client, actual kind of like native apps like WhatsApp and Instagram, Instagram is a web app as well. Things like WhatsApp, we haven't had WhatsApp in there yet. The thing about a lot of these ISVs is what they need to justify a port is they need volume. So, when we ship, when we've got devices shipping, a certain amount of devices shipping, then they will consider, I think they'll consider it, but until we start shipping devices, it's difficult to have that conversation with ISVs. So, right, this is always the chicken and egg situation with a new platform. Like, you want the apps, but you can't get the apps until you've got the volume, but to get the volume, you need the apps. So we're doing the best that we can to kind of work within those parameters. Basil, do you use Nano? I use Nano when I'm SSH'd into my server, yeah. But outside of that, not really. I mean, if I'm going to use an editor, I tend to use gedit. Basil, can you code with assembly or assembler? No, I never learned assembler. But when I started getting interested in programming, it was a time when assembler was kind of old hat. For me, it was much better to use C, or around the time I was getting into computers, it was really, it was kind of the mid-90s, so C, Pascal, BASIC, things like that were much more interesting around that time. Seb, what kind of t-shirt is it this time? This is my Nintendo shirt. Yeah, I dig this. Yeah, I have a lot of t-shirts, I've realized. I just chucked out 3 bags of cheap t-shirts from my closet. My wife gives me crap all the time about how messy my closet is, because one of the things that you don't want to hang t-shirts up, so I just got these big stacks of them. But of course, you pull out one t-shirt at the bottom, the whole stack wobbles around. So I decided to chuck out a lot of shirts, and some of this was just repetition. Like when we used to do physical UDSs, I'd get 5 of the same track lead shirts, bright orange Ubuntu t-shirts or bright light blue Ubuntu t-shirts. I don't need 5 of them. One's enough. So what I do is I basically, as a regular thing, like would just take all these shirts out and put them into bin liners, and then we donate them to like local charities or to charities that take those shirts and give them to homeless people and whatever else. So somewhere in the world there's a ton of homeless people wandering around in bright orange Ubuntu t-shirts and old Slayer t-shirts. I think I missed the question earlier on. Oh yeah, from Basil. Who's your favorite Nintendo character? Just the T-shirt reminded me. I've been reading something about that. Who's my favorite Nintendo character? I'm not really a Nintendo kind of guy, really. I guess you could probably say Mario. Probably it. Yeah. On Wilson, will there be something like the swipe keyboard in Ubuntu? It's invaluable on phone. I don't think we have any current plans to do that. I haven't seen any current plans around that, but I'm certain that that'll be something that will be in our future. McMill, what do you think about 1+1 phone? I haven't seen anything about it, to be honest with you, so I don't really have much to say. Aki ThinkPad, what SQL do you like? What SQL? Isn't there just one SQL? If you're talking about which database, I use MySQL. But that's about it. Vasil, what are the specs on your server? So I've got a couple of VPSs. So I've got a VPS that's running, jonobacon.org, dealing with disrespect, the Art of Community, the Community Leadership Summit, 7th, 5th, a bunch of things, right? So this is like my main web server. We also have a separate server for the Bad Voltage community. So that's community.badvoltage.org, which is basically running discourse out of Docker. Yeah, and they're just kind of fairly beefy VPSs. I can't remember the specific specs, but they're like pretty powerful VPSs with A2 hosting. And running Ubuntu, as you'd imagine. Yeah, it's great. Speaking of which, I need to tell all of you about dealing with disrespect, because this has come out since my last Q&A. So one of the things that as a community manager and just as a member of humanity that's bugged me incessantly over the years is the way some people treat each other, the way some people communicate with each other. And I see this all the time with the following example. I see people providing feedback or commentary on Reddit, on blogs, on YouTube, various other places, that is rude and disparaging and belittling, and in some cases just malicious in the way that they kind of treat each other. We've all seen it. We've all seen people just, someone releases a piece of software that doesn't work exactly how somebody else likes it, and they get accused of all kinds of different things, and all kinds of abuse and insults and whatever else is hurled at them. And I've seen over the years lots of people who basically say, you know what, I just frankly don't want to have to deal with the trolls anymore. I don't want to deal with the trolls. I don't want to deal with the haters. So they stop giving stuff. Stop making things and giving them away, whether it's software or music or whatever else. So this has been bugging me for quite some time, and I've tried over the years to think of a silver bullet. Some of you may remember the Open Respect project that I started, which was the idea of a code of conduct or a declaration of respect that everybody could subscribe to, that everybody could use. That was kind of useful to a degree, but it didn't really work. I've banged the drum is the plural banged, bung? I've bunged the drum multiple times over the years about people being polite and respectful. You'll have seen a lot of my team at Canonical talk about this. This is not something I ask them to talk about. They just do that anyway. Because my view has always been, like, we could have the most vigorous disagreement about anything. Pick your hot button subject. Let's say gun control or abortion or religion or Wayland versus Mir. Pick it, right? Whatever it might be. We should be able to have completely opposite viewpoints about anything, right? And still be able to have a discussion that is polite and respectful. It may be vastly differing in our goals and intentions and values, but we should be able to treat each other with respect. Likewise, you should be able to find a piece of software or a piece of music or a video, whatever it might be, and absolutely hate everything about it. Like, think it's worthless and useless or bad or whatever you might think. and be able to provide that respect, that feedback to the author of that work in a polite and respectful manner. So, but people don't do that, right? So I was hanging out one night at home, and I got a PS4, and I got a PS4, and one of the things on PlayStation 4 is this thing called PlayStation Live, and basically what it is it's people can stream to the internet, so it's kind of like Ustream. So what I did is I was at home one night and I was watching this live stream. Someone had posted to the PlayStation 4 subreddit about how some guy was drunk and streaming live to the internet with his webcam, and this guy, so I dialed in. This guy was surrounded by beer cans. Apparently there was rumors that he'd hit his wife and kicked his dog. Like, this guy's, from what I could see, was having a mental breakdown on the internet, right? It's easy to kind of like judge the guy and hate the guy because if he's hit someone or he's kicked someone or whatever. But to me, like, this guy's having a mental breakdown on the internet, but these people who were logged in, who were sending messages to his screen, were saying, "Come on, dude, do some shots," or people were, asking for his phone number so they could prank call him. And I was trying to say, like, dude, just turn the PlayStation off, go to bed, sober up, and deal with this tomorrow, right? And people were shouting at me, telling me that I was being an old guy and stop interfering. And it made me realize that just people can be awful to each other. And what we really need is over the years, one of the benefits of working in a very large project like Ubuntu is that I've had the opportunity to develop a thick skin. And I've learned how to put all communications in context. When somebody says, I hate this and I hate that, and they come out with all of this hyperbole about Ubuntu, I mentally go through this process where I assess not just the words, but I assess the tone and the content and the context and who the sender of this message is, and then I naturally consider the various attributes that existing human beings, like how someone's age affects their communications, their gender, their cultural experiences, how much practical experience they have, the things like the medium, whether they're anonymous or whatever. So all of these different things. And then I just have like a code that I've always subscribed to, which is things like, stay classy and judge people based upon evidence and be accountable and things like that. So I've had the benefit of doing this. Of going through this experience, and I thought, what people need, like when people have those bad experiences, they need a little book that they can read. So I wrote this book. Sorry, this is very rambling, but I just want to give the backstory. Basically, Dealing with Disrespect is a book that is completely free. Anyone can download it. You can get it from dealingwithdisrespect.com. And basically it provides, the idea is that when someone's having a bad day and they've read something that's kind of upsetting or abusive or whatever on the internet, they can just go to this, someone can point them towards this website. They can go and download the book as a PDF. You can get it, you can read it on the website. You can get it on a Kindle for like $3. But the whole book is free. It's Creative Commons licensed, and the whole idea is that people can use it and they can help themselves with it. So anyway, I just wanted to let you folks know about that because I know you all spend a lot of time on the internet, a lot of the time in our community, and the book might be useful. Sorry, that was incredibly rambly. Aki ThinkPad saying, yep, Jono says you should disrespect people at PlayStation 4. No, that is not what I was saying. Okay, let's get through some of these other questions. Aki ThinkPad, is ARM the future? What advantages does it have over x86? I'm not really a silicon kind of guy, but I think that ARM, I think we've got some, I think there's some, it's all to play for. I think ARM, x86 and Power are all really interesting. So yeah, I could, there's various technical reasons why, some have advantages over other. I'm not the right person to ask about that. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think any one architecture is going to necessarily have an advantage over any other one right now. I think it's all to play for. Hey Hazen, what do you think of Juju on Power 8 and what opportunities will it bring? I think that I think Power 8 is really cool with IBM. That once again, IBM has a long-standing commitment to Linux and open source. I'm glad that we're working with them with Ubuntu. A lot of interest there in like the big data world and things like that. So I think it's really neat. And Juju is just making leaps and bounds. So Juju on Power I think is a really great combo. Basil, will Ubuntu Touch appear in an autocorrect fail post? I hope so at some point. Although hopefully our autocorrect will always work, but you know I don't think any autocorrect will always work. Aki ThinkPad, how can I make a Colmac or Dvorak keyboard layout? Make sure it gets included in the Ubuntu phone, or is it already going to be included? I don't know. I think honestly, Colmac and Dvorak keyboard layout is probably fairly low on the priority list, but I don't know if it's going to be included. Also, don't you need like the weird that thing if you use like Dvorak? I mean, surely on a single screen it wouldn't make sense. Knack, apart from the Boston Ales, what do you miss most about Wolverhampton? Good question, Nat. Honestly, it's the people. Like Wolverhampton, people who live in Wolverhampton are really nice people, really good people. You know, that's probably the main thing. Like, there's a certain kind of like sensibility, a certain sense of humor that I miss that I don't get over here in the US. I mean, I love where I live, but you know, some of that isn't there. There's also this sandwich shop, which is opposite. Where is it? It's just down the road from the Moon Underwater. That does these pork sandwiches. They're only open on Friday and Saturday nights, and god damn, delicious. Curry's good as well. Basil, Apache, and what happened to you last week? And does type of stuff can go fuck themselves in hell, because if you have people who like your product, you should keep your fucking don't give it. Or Basil, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Can you clarify that, preferably with less bad language? Naked Ubuntu user, I love Ubuntu, but what would you say sucks about Ubuntu? Not mention any lack of bad apps. What do I think sucks about Ubuntu? I don't think anything sucks about Ubuntu. I mean, I think there's things that I'd like to see improved and refined. Let me think of an example. I think probably the thing that sucks most about Ubuntu, and it's not really within Ubuntu's control, is there's certain apps that I would like to have, but you said don't mention that. In terms of Ubuntu itself, there's really nothing that I think sucks. I mean, there's bits of our platform that I think would work nicer if we spent more time in it, like you know, like there's some bits and pieces missing in system settings that would be nice to have. I think the web apps in 14.04 could work a little bit better as well. Like I feel like they haven't realized their full potential yet, but I don't think anything sucks. Seb, guitar and drum kit at the same time for the end of this one. I don't have enough arms and legs. I'm sorry. Chloe Wolfigirl, I heard something about Canonical and Kingsoft holding hands. What does this mean about Canonical and LibreOffice? Are they pushed out of this relationship? I don't know who Kingsoft are, to be honest with you. LibreOffice isn't going anywhere, so no. Aki ThinkPad, is Pulse Audio being used on the Ubuntu phone? GStreamer is, and I believe that GStreamer talks to Pulse Audio. I'm not sure. I think so. I don't really know. Basil, sorry for the bad language. I was asking to use Apache on your server. Yes, I did. All right, we've got 8 minutes left, folks. Get your questions. Excuse me. Get your questions in. Get your questions in. Da, 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 da. Get your questions in. Chloe Wolfigirl, I heard Microsoft Office is coming to Linux, even if they aren't. What do you think this could do for Ubuntu? You know what, Microsoft Office, people ask me this every so often, Microsoft Office would be good for Linux because there is a lot of businesses out there right now that are heavily entrenched in Microsoft products. And that will make life easier. So I think it would be good. I think it would open up Ubuntu to the enterprise much better. So yeah, I think that would be good for us. Aki ThinkPad, LibreOffice on the Ubuntu phone. Unless LibreOffice create a mobile-friendly version of it, no chance. LibreOffice is a desktop app, and can you imagine running a desktop app on a screen the size of on a screen the size of this? I mean, it's not going to work. So, yeah, it's that wouldn't work well. Basil, Ubuntu Media Center. We don't have any plans for an Ubuntu Media Center right now. Pulu90, could we ever have bad voltage every week? We get asked this fairly regularly. For those of you who don't know, Bad Voltage is a podcast that I do with Stuart Langridge, Brian Lunduke, and Jeremy Garcia that releases every couple of weeks. It's an open source podcast where we talk about other stuff as well, technology and politics and music, and we talk about gun control and all kinds of stuff. So, political issues and things like that. We record it every 2 weeks. We don't want to do it every week for a couple of reasons. One is, one of the things that we learned about doing log radio, we did that every 2 weeks for 4 or 5 years, is that by the time a new episode comes out, people are excited about it, right? You've already listened to the first one, it was fun, but it feels exciting. Like a new episode is something you look forward to. When you do something on a weekly basis, it doesn't become a special event anymore. It's just kind of, okay, it's this week, it's time for an episode. So I think there's something about that. The other thing is that it helps us to just, gives us time to really do our research on the show, rate and deliver the best quality show. Our view is we'd rather have fewer episodes come out, but those episodes be better than do episodes all the time and always be busy. So what we do is we record every Wednesday. We get together every Wednesday, but every other week we record a show, and on the in-between weeks we basically get together and plan the show, and that works out really well for us. But yeah, badvoltage.org is the place where you can check out the show. Come and join us. We have a rocking community forming at community.badvoltage.org. Aki ThinkPad, why not an Ubuntu phone? Again, Aki, why would you do that? I mean, why would you want to emulate desktop Windows apps running on a phone? This is less about the technology. Just think about more like the user experience of people using those applications on a phone. Vasil, do you think that there will be more games for Linux after SteamOS rolls? Yes, I think Ubuntu and Linux in general is becoming a very prevalent gaming platform. I think we're crossing the chasm with that. Roger, do you think it's a shame that you can't tell how many times 1404 LTS has been downloaded? It would be really cool to know. I don't think you should trust any download figures because there's all kinds of complexities that between looking at download stats. Because for example, I could take Ubuntu 1404 LTS and I could download it 100 times and install it once, or not install it at all. Or I could download it once and then give it to 100 people on CDs, and they could all install it, and then they could give those CDs to 100 people. It's difficult to determine, accurate kind of usage figures. So we try not to get kind of dragged into that. Hey, Hazen, which devices do you have Ubuntu Touch on, and which devices would you like to see it ported to? I currently have it on the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 7 2013. I'd love to see it ported to a bunch of different devices. I'd love to see it ported to the Nexus 5, and I'd love to see it ported to the iPhone. Chloe Wolfie Girl, do you think the lack of ability to tell developers exactly how many people use Ubuntu makes Linux look Linux look like it's doing much worse than it actually is? Like I said, I think it's difficult. I think what matters is going to be easier to determine usage of handsets because you can determine sales, and I think that's what most mobile developers are going to want to know. In terms of actual downloads of Ubuntu itself, I think everybody recognizes that the data isn't particularly useful, but I think the data points to a very, very dominant third operating system. Vasil, if conversion is screen size best, does this mean that if I plug my desktop PC on a 5-inch display, it would boot into a mobile UI? Yeah, so if the idea is with Ubuntu is that if you have your phone plugged into a screen, you have the desktop on the screen, but then if you unplug it, then you see the mobile view. And the point of this is that you want your apps to converge between the different screens. That means that you can have the full conversion experience. So you could imagine if you have a word processor on your desktop that you're running, and then you decide to leave the office and you get in the bus. You unplug it, and then you've got the same word processor that you can use the keyboard on the phone, but then the user interface is optimized for that screen. Maybe there's fewer fewer toolbars and whatever else. Next question is from Aki ThinkPad. Political question. In the UK, they have an opt-in for having access to adult-centric content. Is this abhorrent in your opinion or pragmatism? I don't understand within the context of what. Opt-in where for having access to adult-centric content? I think generally, in terms of technology, if you're going to be displaying adult content, I think you should provide measures to prevent kids seeing it, and you should have the ability to clarify, like, you want to see that content. Because I think there's two audiences here. Well, there's three audiences. There's people who want to see adult content, there's kids, and then there's people who are adults who don't necessarily want to see adult content. So I think you want to have a means of being able to say, I would like to see adult content, or I'd like to know that it's adult content, or I'd like to block it. All right, we've got a minute left. I'm going to blast you some final ones. Wilson, I used numeric on the Nokia tablet N800. It was good. Why not have a desktop light space on the Ubuntu phone? I know it will be user unfriendly, but still useful. I don't think just having any kind of desktops running on a phone makes sense. I think it'll be a bad experience, speaking personally. Chloe Wolfigirl, I thought torrents were coming to 1404 in scopes. Why didn't that happen? I don't remember torrents being available in scopes. I remember there being a torrent scope, but I don't think it's shipping by default. I don't know, to be honest with you. iBobX, hi, tell me, is there any type of sync between Ubuntu desktop and phone? I mean, if I get this Nexus 4, can I sync it with my Ubuntu desktop automatically? There currently isn't any automatic sync. There will be in the future, though, that's the plan. Basil, so yes. That's not a question. And then the final one, Chloe Wolfigirl, have you been downloading your free PS Plus games on your PS4? Yeah, yes and no. I've got a couple of them, but frankly, I play Battlefield 4 all the time on that. That's it. Final question, Basil. Sorry, is Canonical interested in other markets? Yeah, Canonical is always interested in lots of different markets. It's interested in telecoms, in entertainment, in general consumers, all kinds of different things. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me for this Q&A. It's always a load of fun. You had some fantastic questions today. As usual, please keep up the great work in the community. Keep spreading the word and spreading the love about Ubuntu. And I will see you all soon. Take care. Bye.